Hello and welcome to Middle Eastern Thursday. So today we are going to be talking about the latest launch from Lattafa, which is Petra. Now this is a fragrance that has been so anticipated and already so very hyped. I don't know if it's gone viral, but it may have gone viral. I don't know. But I will tell you that, believe it or not, as much as you guys know that I love to try new fragrances, I was not very excited about this one. And I don't even know why, but I was like, I don't even know if I'm going to pick it up. I actually shared that with you. If you watch all of my videos, I shared that with you during the Saturday morning Chatty Scent Corner. I discussed that this was about to be launched and that it was in pre-order and that I didn't know if I was going to pick it up or not. But I received so many requests to review this fragrance that I ended up picking it up. And I figured, you know what, if I don't like it, if it's too similar to something else that I have in my collection, I'll just go ahead and find it a new home. So we are going to have a very good discussion today because I have so much to say about this one. So we are going to start with a regular, detailed review, and then I'm going to go ahead and do some comparisons. Because the other thing about this fragrance, guys, is that it has been compared to so many other fragrances. But today we're going to focus on the three that I could tell are the most requested. The first one is that allegedly, this fragrance was inspired by Xerjoff Casamorati Quattro Pizzi, which is a 2024 release that, of course, I own. And I've done a detailed review of this fragrance here on the channel if you're interested. We are going to compare it to this one. And then I also had someone request that I compare it to Musamam White. Okay, we are going to have that discussion. And last but not least, of course, because this other Lattafa fragrance has the note of plum and it's a plum liquor. So, it has some similarities according to some of you. And I will let you know if I agree with that, but it's Teriaq Intense. So we are going to talk about this fragrance in detail, and then we'll get into the comparisons. So let's go ahead and jump right in. But before we do so, if this is your first time here, I'm Arahi, and I'm your fragrance concierge because I'm totally committed to creating the best fragrance experience for you. I upload videos multiple times a week, and on this channel, we love to talk about all types of fragrances. So if that sounds like the type of content that you're interested in and like a good plan, then please consider subscribing, give this video a thumbs up, and don't forget, leave a comment. Let's go. All right, so before I get started, I wanted to let you know that most likely we are going to have one or maybe even two Middle Eastern fragrances videos next week because I have been so busy reviewing so many fragrances within the other categories or types such as Western niche and, and designer that I have fallen quite behind when it comes to Middle Eastern fragrances. And I know that you guys are waiting for so many reviews of so many new launches. And I do have them here and I have started to test quite a number of them, but I do at least 2 cycles, or I try to do at least 2 cycles of testing before sharing my review. And I have just fallen behind, guys. So most likely, expect to see 1 or 2 additional Middle Eastern fragrances videos next week, in addition to our regular schedule, if at all possible, because, it depends on how, everything else in my life goes. But anyway, let's go ahead and start this conversation on Petra. First of all, let's just take a moment to admire this beautiful bottle. So, when I saw this bottle initially, it immediately gave me like Mediterranean vibes. I don't know if you've spent any time in Greece, but when it comes to like the Greek islands, which are my favorite, I do love Athens and, I do love the mainland, but I have to tell you that the Greek islands, I just think are just exceptional. And my favorite is Santorini. And I have to tell you that this reminds me so much of Santorini, Mykonos, Rhodes, all of the Greek islands and Greece in general. So I thought, this is definitely going to be like a spring, summer type of fragrance. But then I looked at the notes, and the notes include rum and plum. And I thought to myself, okay, that does not give for like a seasonal, like a spring or summer cocktail type of scent or anything like that. So I found it rather weird. And then with the addition of the note of tuberose, I thought to myself, okay, this is really not going to be like a Mediterranean vibe fragrance. But I have to tell you that I was kind of wrong. Not completely wrong, but I was kind of wrong, because this is not like a heavy, boozy fragrance. Let's just start by saying that. Although it does open with that plum note and that rum note, this is not a heavy, boozy fragrance to my nose or on paper at all. So everything that I'm going to share with you today is as a result of me testing it on paper and on my skin. When it's more on paper, I will let you know. And when it's more on my skin, I will also let you know, so that you can kind of assess if this is a fragrance that you're even interested in. So, according to Lattafa, Petra is inspired by the laid-back luxury of the Mediterranean. And yeah, we're going to talk more about that. But I also wanted you to know that Petra in Greek means stone or rock. But all in all, this is a beautiful bottle. It has a cap that does not feel cheap at all. There is a little bit of weight to it. The bottle is quite heavy. It has a very luxurious feel. This is not ceramic, but it is a material that is very, very nice and feels very luxurious. The cap has been done exquisitely. Everything is just very, very beautiful. The entire aesthetic of this bottle is just priceless. So on that end, I'm very glad that I picked up the fragrance, because this is, you know, Lattafa does have a lot of nice bottles, but this one is really, really beautiful. And if you want to sit it like on your dresser or somewhere in your room or in your home, it is absolutely gorgeous. I will tell you that. So Petra is a fragrance that I can tell you opens up sweet. Not very sweet, but it opens up sweet with that note of plum, and it is boozy. Now let's talk about the plum a minute, because the plum note in the opening to my nose is not weak, but it's not very present. It's there, but it's not intense. It's not dominant. Actually, between the plum and that boozy accord, I get more of that boozy accord than the plum itself. But although I get more of that boozy accord, the opening of the fragrance is also smooth. And it may be a function of the fact that this is a very new fragrance. I mean, I just received it several days ago, and it, you know, it probably needs time to sit. So maybe with time that will change. But as of right now, the fragrance to my nose and on paper is opening quite smooth, not faint or weak, but very smooth, with a present plum note that's not dominant in any way. Some of you may even miss the plum note, to be honest with you, but you are going to get that booziness. And the booziness, while it is very present, and it is more present than the plum note, it's not super intense either. Again, the fragrance is smooth. Now, as the journey continues, and before you get to midway in the olfactory journey, because it's almost immediately after that opening, I do get the coconut. And the coconut is creamy. The coconut is not flaky in any way. It's not giving me coconut water. It's giving me creamy coconut. But again, a very smooth, creamy coconut. Now, mid in the olfactory journey, the florals make their appearance. And yes, I am saying florals, even though you're only really seeing tuberose, because I am picking up on florals. Not necessarily like a large bouquet, but maybe like there's a couple more florals involved that have not been disclosed. Because while I do pick up on the tuberose, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute, the florals are giving me more than just tuberose. It's almost like maybe there's some neroli or maybe some jasmine. I don't know, but I am getting florals. Now, within the florals, I do pick up clearly on the tuberose. But this tuberose, in case you're not into the note of tuberose, or you don't like it when a tuberose has been done in a very intense way, because the tuberose can be something else in a fragrance, I'm sure we will agree. It's not a bubblegummy tuberose. It's not a very dominant tuberose. It's not weak, but it is kind of like faint in the background. Like it's almost like the white florals appear, and then you have the tuberose take the spotlight. But at that, the tuberose is not overpowering or dominant within the florals in any way. I don't know how to explain it in any other way, but let me just say that, you know, the opening I told you is very smooth. There are several notes that are quite smooth, very light, and now I'm telling you that the florals are going through the same thing. So what I started to wonder is, could all of this be a function of the fact that this is a very new fragrance? It hasn't had a chance to sit, and maybe it just needs to sit for a while, and then we will start to see the coconut take more of a, you know, more oomph. We will start to see the plum show up even more. We'll start to see the rum and the plum work together better. The booziness may, you know, intensify, but along with that plum note, which is what I would expect. And then when it comes to the florals, maybe we will see a tuberose that's a bit dominant, not overall overarching over the entire scent, but at least within the white florals, maybe the tuberose will pick up more intensity. We will not know until I allow this fragrance to sit for some time. But I'm letting you know that right now, on paper and to my nose and on my skin, this is what I'm getting in the opening of the fragrance. Now, in case you're wondering, you know, as I approach the dry down, there's several things that happened that really surprised me. I'm telling you guys, I'm almost to the point of thinking that maybe this is a fragrance that, you know, was produced very recently, and I didn't think about it and threw out the box before, you know, looking at the production date. Because I am telling you, there's so many things that are not very normal to me as far as the progression, you know, in the olfactory journey of a fragrance, especially when it comes to Lattafa. You know, I've received Lattafa fragrances in the past, like Teriaq Intense, that immediately performed for me. Has it intensified through time? Yes. But I'm finding that Petra is a bit light overall. So let me tell you, so as I approach the dry down, right, and at the dry down, and in case you're wondering, I'm not picking up on the vanilla whatsoever until the dry down. But what I am finding is that as I approach the dry down, the plum becomes more and more faint. The booziness intensifies a bit, but the plum definitely takes a back seat. And at dry down, the plum is gone. On paper and on my skin, the plum is gone. And at the dry down, what I am getting is a vanillic, slightly boozy scent. The other thing that I'm not picking up is on nuttiness, and I'm not picking up on the praline or any other nut of any type. What I am getting is a slightly boozy vanilla scent on a backdrop of like slight, I can't call it any other way, like slight florals and musk. And we will talk about the musk in a minute. But I'm telling you, all I'm getting at the dry down, I'm not getting per se the coconut. I'm not getting, you know, the plum at all. What I am getting is a slightly boozy vanillic scent on a backdrop of very light florals and musk. And that's it. Now, what I will tell you is that although that's all that I'm getting at the dry down, the scent is quite beautiful, but it is pretty much a boozy vanilla, right? And that's where I think some of you may have thought that, hey, is this a bit, can we compare it to Teriaq Intense, even though Teriaq Intense, guys, to my nose has a very present plum note. Like, there is no disguising that. That fragrance to me is all about the plum, but we're going to talk more about that when I get into the comparisons. So let me just give you the other details of this one so we can finish with this review. So curiously enough, because I am landing on that slightly boozy vanillic scent, I really think that this is a fragrance that you could pull off any season of the year. But there is a smoothness and a lightness to it that makes it very suitable as a vanilla summer fragrance, right? So it is perfection for spring and summer. It is one of those boozy vanilla fragrances that you can definitely pull off without any problem during the summer season, even on days where it is very, very warm, okay? In addition to that, I think that this is a fragrance that is suitable for any age group, any age group. I don't think that there's a limitation there. To me, this is a full-on feminine fragrance, but please wear whatever you want. To me, this is not unisex. This is really a feminine fragrance. And unless after it has a chance to sit, it picks up on that boozy note and that plum note, and it picks up on that coconut, you know, making it more of a unisex, balancing out all of these notes. There is no oud in this fragrance, but there is musk. But the musk is not one that I would be concerned about, at least not now. Maybe after it has a chance to sit, the musk will intensify. But right now, what I'm getting is like a level 2 musk, which means that you are going to pick up on it in a faint way. It's not a very present musk and much less animalic. It's not that type of musk at all. In addition to that, this is a fragrance that is performing decently because it is getting me no more than 6 hours, and that's without overspraying. I'm not getting more than 6 hours. It is giving me a strong projection, I would say during the first hour or maybe a little bit more after that, and it is giving me a strong sillage though. It is leaving a trail. But it is a fragrance that overall is very smooth. So even in that trail, you are going to pick up on a very smooth and like silky scent. So overall, guys, you know, and before we jump into the comparisons, how do I feel about this fragrance? I think that this is a fragrance that gives an air right now with the way that it's performing and the notes that I'm picking up. It gives an air of like summer vacation in the Mediterranean. I really, really do get that. I think that this fragrance is perfect for that Mediterranean summer environment. Whether you're in any of those Greek islands or in Capri in Italy, you know, it does give me that vibe, truly, very much so. This is a fragrance that I think is also very suited for the spring season. I am not sure that I will pull this fragrance during the fall or winter seasons, even though, as I said before, you can get away with it. Do I think that this is a solid release from Lattafa? I think it's too early to say if this is a solid release from Lattafa or not. I think that this is truly one of those fragrances that we are going to have to give some time to. I predict that this fragrance by next summer, like by summer of 2026, will be giving us a totally different vibe and perspective. And I also have a very strong feeling that there will be a couple of notes that will become quite dominant and give this fragrance a bit more character and personality. I also think that in the end, it may turn out to be a unisex fragrance that leans a tad to the feminine side, but all of this is just me making assumptions based on my experience with the Lattafa DNA and based on the notes and how they're performing so far and my experience with testing fragrances. Do I think that this is a nice buy right now? I think that if you're willing to be patient, I think that this is a nice buy right now. I think that you're able to enjoy it immediately if you are okay with a slightly boozy vanillic scent that is very smooth, that is very appropriate for the summer season. But I think that it will require patience. It will require you to allow this fragrance to sit for a while. I think that those white florals that I'm speaking about will pop up clearly as we allow this one to sit. Okay, so now let's go ahead and jump into the comparisons. I'm going to start with the first comparison and I'm going to end on the most relevant of the comparisons and the one that has been discussed the most within our fragrance community. So the first comparison is going to be to Musamam White Intense. Now, this is another Lattafa fragrance, and this is not a new or recent release. I've had this in my collection for quite some time. It's had the opportunity to sit. It's been in my top picks list for Lattafa and overall fragrances for a long time. It makes it to every single top list. And this is a fragrance that I've also told you that I think is a perfect signature scent. You can pull it off any season of the year. It is a very elegant, very smooth, very sophisticated scent that also has quite a bit of character. Now, in Musamam White, you're going to find notes like Davana and ylang ylang. There is definitely coconut here. I will say that the coconut here has been done very, very much like the coconut that I'm picking up in Petra right now. And again, I'm disclaiming that right now because I already told you, I really think we need to allow Petra to sit. There's also some spices here, but I've never been able to clearly discern what are the specific spices. Maybe the cinnamon is peeking through, but there's definitely not one. There's multiple spices in this fragrance. Now let's talk about how, in my opinion, how it compares to Petra. Okay, so if Petra would have come in with a very present, boozy plum note, right? Then there would be no discussion here because there is nothing plum boozy in Musamam White Intense whatsoever. That is not what this fragrance is about. This is a very balanced fragrance that has quite a bit of spiciness to it. And at that, it does have a musk base that is very present. That is one of the biggest differences between these two. Now that this one has had a chance to sit, this is a musk-based fragrance, guys. This is a 3 bordering on 4. It's not an animalic musk in any way. It's a very, like I said before, balanced and smooth fragrance. So you're not going to have a problem with the musk. But the musk in these two is definitely not the same. All in all, what I'm telling you is that there is no way that I can even imagine you sniffing this fragrance right now as it stands without having sat or anything. Like if you received this fragrance, you sprayed it out, as I've always told you, at least 8 times, and you allowed it to sit for at least a couple of days before really sniffing it. I just don't understand how you would automatically, feel that this one is very similar to Petra, because I am not getting that at all on paper. Not on skin, because our skin is going to alter everything, yes. But on paper, I'm just not getting that similarity. The other thing that I do want to say about Musamam is Musamam has a very present citrusy opening. Citrusy bordering on zesty now that it's had a chance to sit with bergamot and orange, and I can't remember if there's anything else, but I do know that this has a very citrusy bordering on zesty, not full on zesty, but bordering on zesty kind of opening that is diffused by the spices, because the spices open the fragrance. The fragrance opens fresh, spicy. That is not the case at all with Petra. Petra does not open fresh, spicy. It opens up, as I said before, sweet, and you are going to get that booziness. Musamam is not boozy in any way, shape, or form. So bottom line, guys, I think that I've made my point. I don't want to beat a dead horse, but I've just made my point that these two, in my opinion, based on paper and skin, these two are not the same. They're not even in the same realm. The next fragrance that I want to do a comparison with is with Teriaq Intense. This is another Lattafa fragrance. This is not a new release. This is actually my second bottle. This has been sitting in my collection for a while because this was a backup. I ended up just gifting my first one. It only had like half a bottle left, and I ended up gifting it. So this is my second bottle, but this one has been sitting. Now, let me just say the following. This fragrance, I understand how this fragrance has come to the forefront as it relates to comparing it to Petra, because this fragrance does have a plum liqueur note. And at that plum liqueur note is very, very present, and it is very dominant, especially after you allow this fragrance to sit for several months. You are going to see that note, which was present from the beginning, by the way, this one did not require much time to deliver what it is. It's just intensified through time, because all fragrances through the maturation process will intensify through time. But this fragrance is not giving me Petra in any way, shape, or form. But let's talk about it in detail. So this is a fragrance that has a very dominant plum liqueur note. Is it boozy? Yes, it is boozy, but this is also a fragrance that has a darkness that I do not get in Petra at all. This is a fragrance that from the beginning I have been describing as a sexy, boozy, mysterious, dark, with a ton of character and oomph kind of fragrance. That is what you're going to get with Teriaq Intense. Intense is the perfect way to describe it because this is a very intense fragrance. It is a powerhouse. This is a no joke fragrance on skin and on paper. Petra. Petra right now, as I said before, is giving me boozy. The booziness is very smooth. There's a slight booziness. I can't even call it full on boozy. No, it is just a boozy, slight boozy feel to it within that vanilla scent, right? This fragrance is boozy from first sniff to dry down to the entire wear of the fragrance. It's boozy all day, every day. Is this a fragrance that gives me that summer vacation Mediterranean vibe? Absolutely not. This gives me, I'm gonna dress in black, put on a red lipstick, and let's go because I'm going to be sexy tonight. That's what this fragrance is about. This fragrance, and I dare say, even after it has a chance to sit in your collection, that is not what you're going to get from Petra. The other thing is, Teriaq Intense is, in my opinion, truly a unisex fragrance. And now that it's had a chance to sit, this is truly a unisex fragrance. Petra, to me, I already told you right now, it is feminine, and maybe after it has a chance to sit, if a couple of those other notes that are missing or faint right now really step up to the plate, then Petra may end up being a unisex fragrance that leans to the feminine side, in my humble opinion. That's just my opinion, guys. But this one, oh no, this is a totally different ballgame. This is not a fragrance that I would wear on a hot summer day outside. This is not a hot summer day period fragrance, in my opinion. This has its use, and I am telling you, it has nothing to do with Petra. The other thing that I want to address is the level of spiciness between these two fragrances. Like, I pick up spiciness here. There is no spiciness here. There is definitely spiciness here. That saffron is present and that cinnamon is not playing. Those are two notes that come across clearly and from the beginning, because I went back to my original notes of when I first reviewed Teriaq Intense for you, and I am telling you from the beginning, right? And now that it's had a chance to sit, that saffron and cinnamon are not playing. They are truly the ones that make this fragrance warm, spicy. In this fragrance, you are not going to get spices. You're just not going to get that. And I already tell you what you're getting at the dry down. And in the future, anything could happen after this has a chance to sit, but I just don't see this fragrance picking up the level of spiciness and darkness and oomph that you find in Teriaq Intense. So overall, guys, these fragrances to me are not in the same realm. They're completely different. Yeah. All right. So let's go ahead and have ourselves an interesting conversation about my favorite comparison, because when I heard, the first thing that I ever heard about Petra is that it was being said that it had been inspired by Xerjoff's Casamorati Quattro Pizzi, which is this fragrance. If I recall correctly, I'm pretty sure that I have a dedicated review of this fragrance here on the channel, and it happened months ago. But if you enter Quattro Pizzi in the search bar of the channel, the video where I reviewed this fragrance is going to pop up. Let me just start by saying that Quattro Pizzi has got to be one of the most complex olfactory journey fragrances that I have within my entire Xerjoff collection. And there's quite the number of Xerjoff fragrances that I would say give you a complex olfactory journey. But this fragrance, first of all, let me start by saying that Quattro Pizzi is a tuberose-centric fragrance that, to top it all off, has the note of Davana and a note of rum. In addition to the Davana, which is not a very easy note to blend and mix with others and have it play it well with others, you are also going to have some spicy notes. And if I recall correctly, it's like coriander and pepper. Okay, so now let's talk in detail about how these two may compare, because I've started with the opening just to give you an idea of what Quattro Pizzi really is about so that you understand. And now I'm going to go deep into this comparison. Let me just start by saying these two, to me, are not the same. Maybe after Petra has a chance to sit, maybe it will come close to Quattro Pizzi, but in my humble opinion, it will never be Quattro Pizzi because it was not designed to be Quattro Pizzi. I think that maybe Petra could end up being a twist on Quattro Pizzi if the tuberose note intensifies within Petra, and if the booziness intensifies within Petra, it may end up being a twist on Quattro Pizzi. But do I think that it is going to be Quattro Pizzi at any point? No. Would I recommend that you pick up Petra thinking that at some point you're going to get Quattro Pizzi? No. Let me also just discuss a couple of other differences that you are going to find between Petra and Quattro Pizzi. Quattro Pizzi, again, is a fragrance that's very complex, but the amount of character that this fragrance has, it took me a minute to really, adjust my nose to it. The tuberose is very dominant, but we also have very interesting notes, like the note of hay. And you are going to pick up hay at the dry down. In Quattro Pizzi, you are going to pick up hay. There's also the tobacco note. The tobacco, to my nose, is not very present. It's very light in the background. At times I question, am I even picking up tobacco, or am I just picking up on the boozy quality of Quattro Pizzi and the tobacco just jumps along with it? But I don't think that the tobacco is a dominant note within Quattro Pizzi. Now, the one thing that I will say is that there is a note of coconut in Quattro Pizzi, which to me is not very present. And because it's not very present, and by the way, it is a creamy coconut note, I pick up on the fact that the way that the creamy note has been done in Petra is very, very similar, if not the same, as what I find in Quattro Pizzi. But that could just be a function, again, of Petra not having sat for a while. And it could also be a function of the fact that right now that coconut note, which is creamy in Petra, is very smooth and not totally disappearing, but until the dry down. But it is a note that's not very present. And in Quattro Pizzi, that coconut note is not one of the most relevant notes, at least not to my nose. It is there, but it is faint. So maybe that's why, I feel that there's a similarity there. But again, at the dry down, I'm not even getting that with Petra. So the coconut really does not play a role. The other thing that I want to address that is very noticeable to my nose between these two is that Quattro Pizzi, within its complex olfactory journey and at the dry down, you're going to pick up on that spicy quality of the fragrance. That pepper and that coriander come through clear. And that is not something that I pick up at all. I don't even pick up on spiciness in Petra because, some of these brands really do not disclose all of the notes that, are included within a specific fragrance. But I can tell you, I'm not picking up on any spiciness in Petra. I'm not picking up on anything that gives Petra that amount of character and oomph at all. So I just really don't see the comparison between these two at all. Like I said at the beginning, maybe after Petra has a chance to sit, it may come close to, Quattro Pizzi in the way of a twist. Maybe it is a fragrance where the coconut will, take some more oomph. Maybe that booziness will increase. Maybe, I don't know, but I just really don't see it like that. But I may be totally wrong. We are just going to have to wait. But for right now, I am telling you, these two are not the same whatsoever. All right, guys, so we've reached the end of this review and comparison video, and I just wanted to come on here and not only share my initial review of Petra, because again, I can't tell you how strongly I feel that this is a fragrance that in order for us to make it justice and really be able to evaluate it, we need to allow it to sit. Everything that I've shared with you today is subject to, how will this fragrance change through time? Because this to me truly does, what I'm picking up is that this is a fragrance that really needs to sit before we see it bloom, before we see what we're really going to get. I tried to give you a review today just based on what I'm getting from my initial try of the fragrance, as in, I received it and I immediately tried it, so it hasn't had a chance to really sit. So please keep that in mind. As far as it Does it remind me of anything other than the 3 fragrances that I reviewed today? It's not reminding me of anything else in my collection. And believe me, when I landed on that boozy, slightly boozy, vanillic, you know, with a little bit of florals in the background kind and musk kind of, you know, scent, when I landed on that, I went around my entire collection, not just Middle Eastern, all of my collection. And because it had been compared to Quattro Pizzi, the other thing that I did is I pulled other Quattro, other Casamorati fragrances like Dama Bianca and I can't remember what others, but I pulled like a whole bunch of those fragrances just to make sure that, you know, it wasn't that we were confused. But I'm not finding any other fragrance that this one can, you know, that it immediately reminds me of, or that upon sniffing it on paper, they're very similar, or gives me the feel that maybe, you know, in a couple of months, that's what we're going to get. I'm not picking that up, but I will tell you that I will be circling back with you as to how this one evolves, because I'm very curious, and how does it compare to these fragrances and maybe even others in my collection. Anyway, I hope that that was helpful for you, in case you were wondering if you should pick it up or not, in case you were wondering, maybe you picked it up, but you're wondering, you know, if there's anything to be said about it being Quattro Pizzi. I'm telling you, it's not Quattro Pizzi whatsoever. And as far as I'm concerned, it's not Musamam White, and it is certainly not Teriaq Intense. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for hanging with me today, and I will see you all in the next video.